Hello, everyone. My name is Adrian Battle Marston, and welcome to another episode of TU Stories. Thank you all so much for joining with us today, and we have another special guest with us, and I'm going to give them a chance to introduce themselves.
Good morning, folks. So my name is Keiwana Perryman. I use she, her pronouns, and I serve as the Associate Director in the Center for Student Diversity.
We got to get that doctor in there.
Dr. Keiwana
There we
Perryman.
go.
There we go.
Uh-huh. Dr. V, how we're feeling?
We're feeling good. A little tired. There's a lot going on this week, but all exciting energy.
So you just came off the high of Black History Month,
Yes.
and you're going right into Women's History Month.
Yes.
What does sleep mean to you?
Sleep. I don't know what that is. I'm still searching for it. I do have 2 small children at home. They don't sleep. Therefore, I don't sleep.
Oh man, are they one of those kinds where that like wake up super early?
No, they both hate mornings. Everybody in our house
okay.
hates mornings. But my 5-year-old, she doesn't sleep. Pediatrician said some kids just don't need sleep. And so she's
Yeah.
up till 11, 12 o'clock at night.
And she's like fine the next day.
She's fine the next day.
Wow.
And I'm like, yo, kid, you go to sleep when you feel like it. And there's snacks in the refrigerator. I'll see you in the morning.
Yeah.
That's how it has to be now. But I'll find sleep at some point.
What was it like beforehand when you weren't really sure what was going on? Were you like nervous? Did you try to force her like you gotta go to sleep? It just
We did.
wasn't working.
We definitely tried reading books, laying with her in the bed. We often found ourselves falling asleep before her even then.
My wife, she'll like put on like ASMR videos.
Okay.
Because her brain just won't shut off.
Yes.
It'll be like the most random things. It's not even just to-do lists. It's everything.
Yes.
Versus me, like, you just give me a pillow, I'm out in like 2
No.
minutes.
I could fall asleep on the couch watching a movie with the quickness. But as soon as I get in the bed, my mind is just thinking about all the things I need to do, all the things I didn't get to do.
Yeah.
Constantly checking my calendar to prepare for the next day. And then I go down a hole on social media,
Yeah.
and it's just 3 o'clock. Like, okay,
I know.
your alarm is going to go off in 3 hours.
It's weird how like she'll find ways to get back into it. One of them is to watch what I'm watching on like TikTok.
Okay.
So like I think it's soothing to like just sort of see someone do something and that sort of calms her down.
Okay.
But it is it is kind of interesting to like little weird things is what it'll do for people to kind of, but yeah, sleep one is tough. It's tough.
It
It's
is.
tough.
It is.
So I want to get a little bit of your story here in
Okay.
the next 30 minutes.
Okay.
We started talking a little bit about what it's like for your kids, but what was your childhood like? Walk us through the story
Oh,
here.
you just gonna start off with the heavy stuff, Adrian,
The
and you
thing.
know that I'm a crier. My childhood was great. It was great. I come from a 2-parent household. My parents divorced when I was 7, and so we went to live with my aunt and my cousin. Both of us are only children, so there was the whole sister-cousin vibe. When my mom remarried, we still found ourselves moving back with my aunt and cousin for different parts of my life. I remember calculating, I believe I went to 17 schools between preschool and 12th grade, just because the moving back and forth. But I still had an amazing childhood. Very close with all my cousins on my mom's side. And then hung out all the time with my aunts on my dad's side. So funny thing, my dad had 3 sisters, and all of his sisters had boys, and the one boy had a girl. So naturally, I wanted to hang out with my aunts all the time.
Yeah.
But it was great. I remember me and my cousins, we had a summer fun club. And so we, sell the lemonade. We would do performances in our backyard and make our neighbors pay a quarter to come see us, and they would just sit on their back porches and kind of look down to our backyard. I think my favorite. Do you remember The Boys?
I think
A singing group.
okay. When you said The Boys, I'm
So-
thinking of like a modern day TV show, not what you're
No,
describing.
no, they were a singing group.
I think I vaguely remember them.
I believe they were produced by like Heavy D.
Hmm.
And so we all had on biker shorts. We each had our own color. Mine was green naturally. And we just sang in our backyard. It was amazing. We had our own handshakes. We made up rules.
Oh, y'all were legit.
Oh, we were a group. We were an entire group. School was always a thing for me. I loved school. We would always play school in our basement. My paternal grandmother was a teacher, and so she would bring home a lot of the textbooks, and I would use them to pay school with my cousins.
Yeah.
And I remember my aunt, when we would leave out in the morning, she would always say, "Listen." And my cousin Teresa and I would have to respond and learn something. And so that really got me into really wanting to learn. I wanted to do what I was told. And I would get money for my grades. I remember it was like $20 for an A, $10 for a B, $5 for a C. So that just really fueled my passion for school. I got a scholarship to go to the Ohio State University when I was in the 6th grade. And so that just spearheaded me on this direction of school, like school first, no matter what, school first, because I saw education as my way out. I didn't know what I was trying to get out of or away from, but it was my way out.
So you've got yourself a bit of a rock band there.
Yes.
You're also a bit of a church girl, no?
I am very churchy. Yes, was at church probably 6 out of 7 days a week. I was a guild girl, so that's basically like the Girl Scout of church. Sang in the choir. I used to be a soprano. I'm an alto now after having children. I was an usher. Board of Christian Education.
Everything.
I did pretty much everything. I was the first out of my cousins to be baptized. Like church was it was the place to be. It was really the place to be. And my longest friends were all made in the church.
Oh yeah, I get that. It's so interesting. You talked about music, and COVID hit, and so like me and my wife, we had first moved to Maryland during that COVID year, and it's like we couldn't find like a church. And now it almost feels like we substituted church during those first like year and a half of like, all right, let's find like music we can listen to, just kind of worship in our own space.
Absolutely.
But we weren't finding like sermons.
Okay.
So now it's like once praise and worship's done, it's kind of like, all right.
Now what? Now what?
Yeah, it's almost like my muscle for listening to like an hour sermon has not been exhausted in so long, and so like my attention span is just not there anymore. I don't know what it is.
You know, but it's funny because my husband is the opposite. I need the praise and worship.
Yes.
I need it to position myself and to kind of draw in my wandering mind.
Yeah.
But my husband, he considers it to be kind of fluff, and he just wants to hear the word. Like, give me the word. Let me know what I'm supposed to know, what you want to share with me.
Yeah.
And let me be on my way.
Oh, that's fascinating. Because the lyrics is what gets me. It's
Absolutely.
Especially when it's like you've got some artists that are able to like articulate what you're feeling.
Absolutely.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
Yeah. So word on the street is your pastor was trying to get you to become a pastor yourself.
Yes.
Bishop Keiwana?
No. I have been running. I'm like Peter. I am 100% a believer, but I allow doubt to creep in, which really kind of taps into or connects to this imposter syndrome that we face. And so I've learned that I have to shift my paradigm of what the pulpit looks like. You know, going into ministry is not only about being in somebody's pulpit and preaching the gospel.
Yeah.
This campus is my pulpit. When students come into my office is the pulpit. And so sharing my journey, and I'm very vocal about being a believer.
Yeah.
Sharing my journey, I believe helps me to connect. And then I'm able to insert, scripture in there every now and then, a hallelujah, something. And it's always amazing when there's a student that matches my energy.
Yeah.
It just makes that moment that much greater. I tell people all the time, my spirit speaks from a place of vulnerability. And I connect that to this idea of submissiveness that Jesus preaches about, and surrendering. Surrendering not only to him, but to the moment, and allowing that moment to just kind of guide the conversation wherever I'm at.
Yeah. You mentioned imposter syndrome. I went through, I feel like, a similar experience when I was a campus chaplain for about 2.5 years. Prior to that, I was still involved with like campus ministries when I was in grad school and undergrad. But I knew I wanted to go into like the DEI work.
Okay.
I was sort of doing it like kind of on the side. Like I'd be working with committees. They didn't have like a position that you hold in my previous employment. And so they would appoint people to help plan the entire month programming for like Black History Month. And so like I was one of the people that helped out with that. And I found all of that like super exhilarating. But it did kind of feel like kind of similar, but like flipped where, damn, does it feel like there's some betrayal here?
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like, I knew I was kind of called for that, but it was hard for me to wrap my mind around the idea of maybe this was supposed to be seasonal, and what your new season is supposed to look like is going to be different in terms of title. Okay. But you could still find ways to minister.
Yeah, the seasons has been a big word for me lately, hence the program that I just had. Yeah. But your season will change, right? And your platform changes. But it doesn't mean that your ministry has to change. And so finding ways to still do the things that your heart is being called to do in the space where you're at.
Yeah.
I think that's what's most important, and not losing focus of that.
You mentioned Christian education. Were you a part of that from K through 12?
So in the Baptist church, Baptist born, Baptist bred, and when I die, I'll be Baptist dead. That's the saying we grew up hearing all the time. So the Board of Christian Education was essentially the educational piece of the church. And so up under the pastor and the clergy, you had the president of the Board of Christian Education. So I was responsible for like Sunday school curriculum. I was responsible for vacation Bible school. Things like that. So it was the educational piece of the ministry.
Gotcha.
Which totally connected my teaching skills. My spiritual gift is that of administration. It pieced all those things together and still allowed me to serve.
Yeah. So, we're fast forwarding a little bit here, and we're sort of landing at Towson University. What was that transition like? And where were you before, and how did you kind of land here?
Yeah, that transition was rough. So my husband was a college football coach for about 16 years. And we were at Old Dominion University prior to coming here. We had an amazing season, went to a bowl game. It's first time in ODU's history that we have went to a bowl game, and to let alone win a bowl game. We were in the Bahamas. It was beautiful. It was amazing. So coming off of a winning season, everybody was just high off life.
Yeah.
The following season, we were trash.
Oh, did just too many people leave?
No, we kept a lot of our seniors.
Oh, wow.
We just did not. I don't know if the players or the coaches just got too comfortable in that win, that historic win. We had also beat Virginia Tech that year. And so Virginia Tech was a powerhouse compared to ODU. So they were just high off life, and I don't think we humbled ourselves as a program. And so the entire defensive side of the ball was let go. Um, Football was the only thing my husband thought he knew at the time. And so we had to reevaluate, okay, what are we going to do now? I was serving as the coordinator for student orgs and leadership. I liked what I did, but I knew that I was called to do more. And I really wanted, I wanted more. I wanted more responsibility. And so I started searching and saw the position here at Towson. When I originally got here, I was the assistant director of leadership and student activities. The dean of students at ODU at the time came from Towson. In that very role, he had worked with our student government association, and so he really advocated for me to apply. He talked up Towson so much, and he was here for about 15 years. He talked it up so much to me, I got excited. Baltimore is closer to home. I'm from Cleveland, Ohio, and my mom had started to get sick, so I thought it was a great opportunity to get closer to home. And once I got here, I was like, okay, now we got to find my husband a job. There are a lot of schools here in the area, but he still was not able to find a position in football. And we started thinking, well, maybe that season of your life is over. And so we had to get comfortable with doing something different and new for both of us. Shortly after getting here, somebody that was on my search committee had said, hey, I think you actually will be a better fit for my job. And so about 6 months later, I applied for my current role and just shimmied right on upstairs to the CSD.
What was that like? Because I'm sure there's some similarities, but now you're dealing very specifically with people and their like social identities.
Yes, identity work. So identity work has always been embedded in what I did. Leadership is my jam.
Yeah.
So that's what my background is in, whether it's student government, student orgs, or fraternity sorority life. Leadership was my jam. And again, identity work is embedded in that. The transition to doing it full time, all the time, was an interesting shift because I then had to start to unpack some things that I had learned, some beliefs that I held that did not hold true anymore. And trying to unpack that can be challenging and difficult.
Oh, yeah.
I'm 41, so I've had these beliefs for quite some time.
Yeah.
The group of women that were here at the time, we represented different shades and colors and complexions and backgrounds. The opportunity to learn and engage with them blew my mind. It was such a fantastic time for me to grow and to challenge myself. And I appreciated the environment and the space that they all created by welcoming me into that space.
Yeah. It's such a unique experience when you enter into that DEI world when you weren't in there prior.
Right.
It like you're doing work for people, but I'm like putting together a presentation and I'm like speaking to students and I'm like, damn, I feel like I needed to hear what I just said.
Absolutely. It's hard. I started Towson in June 2019. I started in my current role in January of 2020. And we all know what happened in 2020, right? Yeah. And so there was this, I don't want to say shift, but we were called on to provide processing spaces to students and our colleagues, all the things that was happening during the summer. But we weren't given space to process ourselves as a staff. And so that was hard. I'm married to a Black man. Trying to process my fears, my anxieties, but then still show up for students and colleagues. We were asked to do book clubs and provide processing spaces to staff and students. But I'm like, well, what about me? How am I dealing with this? And I'm not sure that I fully had an opportunity to do that. Unfortunately, we're still experiencing some of the same things, from that summer. It's just a nonstop. And so racial battle fatigue becomes a thing.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
In addition to that, there was an experience where I was forced to explain to my 4-year-old at the time why our neighbor couldn't play with us or couldn't play with them, or why they couldn't play with each other, because his grandmother was in town and she was very racist. And the mom had shared with me prior to, like, you may not want to have the kids outside today.
Oy.
I'm like, how do you explain that to a 4-year-old?
Yeah.
I didn't have the words. I just told her, you know what? Let's just go in the house. Let's just go in the house and take a minute. Let's grab something to eat, and we'll go back outside later. I was just shocked.
Yeah.
And so, again, trying to figure out what is it that I need to be able to navigate these situations for myself so that I can be present and can have conversations with my kids. Not just my biological kids, but my kids
Your
here
students.
on campus.
Yeah.
I think they experience so many things that I didn't have to experience growing up. Social media definitely makes things a lot more visible.
Oh yeah.
Than when we were their age. And so it's just constantly in our faces. We constantly have to process and unpack and heal. Process, unpack, heal. It's a cycle. And if I'm being honest, I'm not sure what to do or say in some of those moments. But just to sit there, and if you need a place to cry, I will surely cry with you, right? And we'll talk it out, and we'll talk through it and see what comes of it. But it's also rewarding because you can see the growth when people are learning something new, whether it's a new skill, when values are being implemented and put into practice. It's such an amazing experience to see it happening in our students' lives, but also to see it happening within myself. I think our students are amazing examples of windows and mirrors into our own lives.
You are associate director.
Yes.
And you have a doctorate.
Yes.
You're working at a higher institution, and historically, those titles are not always connected with a Black woman.
Correct.
And you've been pretty confident in allowing your authentic self to be shown, even with, like, you let people know up front, like, yo, I'm a crier. I'm naming that. Not so that not like a, hey, FYI sort of thing, but like, I'm confident in myself when it comes to that. How did you get to that sort of confidence? Because that is not easy, especially, I'll say, for obviously Black people in general, and, like Black men, there's a whole conversation there, but particularly for Black women, there's that old trope of, like, strong Black woman, and it's like, that's a very inhumane.
I reject it.
Yeah.
100%. Yes, I'm strong, but I also need things and people. I need to rely on others. I recognize that I can't do this by myself. So I knew going into my doctoral program that I did not need a terminal degree for what I wanted to do. But I also recognized that because of my identities, having those letters behind my name would give me a sense of credibility. It will open doors and windows and create opportunities that I may not have access to without it.
Yeah.
I don't often introduce myself as such because it's not a prevalent identity for me. And I'm often reminded, as you did earlier, like, you worked hard for this. Yes, I did. I worked my butt off. But it's just not the most prevalent identity for me in this phase of my life. I am confident in who I am as a mother, as a wife, as a woman, as a Black woman. But it's my professional identity that I'm still working on to this day. Again, this identity work constantly challenges me to lean in to some of the stereotypes that kind of are associated with all of my identities. And then sometimes I may push back. And the idea of being this strong Black woman, the angry Black woman,
Oh, yeah.
being resilient, I reject them. I push back on them. I am strong. Sometimes I can be angry.
Yeah.
But that is not the totality of me. I share that I'm a crier because I recognize that it makes other people uncomfortable. And so it's an opportunity for me to free others of their discomfort. I'm okay. I will be okay. You're going to get these tears. You're going to get every emotion that I'm feeling in that moment. Again, that's me surrendering to that moment. But I can still operate in my role while I'm crying at the same time.
Yeah.
It's just a way that my spirit releases energy. And I'm confident in that.
Did you ever receive any pushbacks?
Absolutely. Oh, people look at me crazy all the time. And interestingly enough, the pushback has only been from other Black women.
Mm.
And so I had my very first conference presentation a year and a half ago, the national conference where I spoke on navigating my emotions in the workplace. And the presentation as a whole focused on women of color. I've since done it here as well, and I've opened it up to women of other identities. I have not yet opened it up to folks who identify as men because I want to, I want to normalize the conversation about expressing your emotions. I want to create this environment where we're caring for one another. You don't talk about it. We don't talk about it a lot. I recognize that those Black women that have shared, I need to separate the message from the messenger, but also putting the message in context. So, for example, a senior level administrator had shared that it would have been professional suicide if she had shown emotions in the workplace. I get it. I get it. The tables that you were sitting at were crowded with old white men. And so, yes, it may not have been in your best professional interest to do that. Also recognize that was probably 20, 30, 40 years ago.
Sure.
And then other women are like, oh, don't cry in front of that white man. Don't cry in front of that white woman. Well, why does somebody else's identity impact how I can express my emotions or how I show up?
Mm-hmm.
And so, again, just taking context into consideration and taking in what was helpful for me and letting everything else fall to the side and continue. I can only be me.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. This is what you're going to get.
It's so interesting because this sort of reminds me of conversations that I've had with like my parents when it comes to similar context. People who you sort of receive that pushback from, I mean, I would assume like there's no malicious intent there. It almost feels like survival versus liberation.
Yeah, I could see that. Absolutely.
Yeah. Because in their space, they're like, this is what I have to do to get from point A to point B. But in our conversations, this is like, all right, but at what cost?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
At what cost? Absolutely. And I'm not sure I'm willing to take that risk.
Yeah. Because you can lose a lot of yourself.
Oh my gosh. These past couple of years have definitely been I'm going to lean into the emotion that I'm experiencing.
Yeah.
It's been a season. I mean, with the transitions, COVID. I had shared a couple of days ago that I'm transitioning from being like a daughter to a caretaker. And so navigating work with being an MOM, a MRS, a DR, like all of those identities often feel like they're competing in this season of my life. And so how do I show up for all the people and be my best self. And that's been a struggle this season.
Man.
I'm learning to just lean into it. Like, this is what it is in this moment. What can I do?
Yeah.
What can I do in this moment in terms of work? What can I do in this moment to be there for my mom? What can I do in this moment to still make time for my husband? What can I do in this moment to be the best mom that I could be? And then once the day is done, wake up and try again.
Yeah.
That's all I got.
I remember you sharing some of this at one of your events that you had.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that what you provided in that space, for obviously what you and your husband had, and for the rest of us as a panelist, it seemed as though the Black students loved that. Because I remember one of my college friends said this, and it didn't dawn on me until I heard it out loud of like, yo, I don't think I had ever seen professional Black couples hearing their stories growing up. Like my mom, she got her associate.
Okay.
My dad never even finished high school because, I mean, they grew up in Jamaica. They were kind of poor, and so like it couldn't have just been my grandmother, right? So he sort of drops out to help out. Same thing with like a lot of my close friends in the area. And I remember, I think I was talking to Anthony about this, in my church, like there was a couple who moved to Rochester, and he was at like a vice president level, the husband. Seeing him just interact like changed my complete perspective on like, man, maybe I could, you know what I mean? Where is your inspiration in terms of coming up with ideas for what you bring to the Black student population?
I talk to students. I have a UGMA coordinator. So UGMA is the collective of Black organizations on campus whose mission specifically speak to the Black student experience. And talking to the students of those 16 organizations, what is it that you want? I look at the programs that they're having to get an idea of, okay, they're all pretty much doing the same type of programs. This is what they're focusing on. I also think about what I'm interested in. Mm-hmm. I look at what other schools are doing, particularly schools that I have worked at, and I look at what my counterparts are doing at those institutions. The brainstorming piece is the most gratifying for me because thinking about what this could be, what this program could bring to campus, what students can get from this is so exciting. And then I've been very intentional about partnering with student organizations for each of my programs because I want them to feel invested in the work that I'm doing for them and with them. Because we know that if they are invested, they'll participate more. And when they have ownership of something, they can then be held accountable for that thing, right? And so it's just a collective brainstorming process that sometimes is amazing and sometimes it's just good, and that's okay. That's okay. But the great ones are amazing, and they'll stay with me forever.
Do you have a favorite one?
My favorite program overall, I would definitely have to say, is Human Library. Human Library is an opportunity to have conversations with folks who hold identities that are different from you. And it's an opportunity to kind of break down stereotypes. You hear the phrase, never judge a book by its cover. Mm-hmm. And so we want to provide the space where in any regular or normal circumstance, you would not be engaging with this person. So we're going to provide the space for you to ask all the questions you've always wanted to ask, to learn all the things you've always wanted to learn and know, but didn't know how to approach the topic. So we solicit folks who want to share their story. And we basically just put their story title on a book, and somebody will come up and pick a book that they want to essentially read, and then they go into a semi-private space and just talk. We've had folks that we've had to physically pull out because they had been engaging for so long. It's just such an amazing time because you sit there, you have questions like, what is it like for Muslims to go weeks without eating and still have to show up in class, at work, and we're sitting here eating in front of their face? Like, what does that feel like physically? And you may not have an opportunity to talk to somebody about that. Human Library provides that space. That is my favorite of all time. But my favorite this year is a tie. And I would say between Seasons of Love, where we had 4 different couples in different seasons of their life, and using seasons, a play on that word, different seasons in their individual relationships, but also different years of service, I would say, to the relationship. We range from 9 months dating to almost 10 years married. And it was an opportunity to just share the good, the bad, to celebrate Black love. And then sitting at the elders' feet. That was a partnership with Towson Black Alumni Alliance, where we identified Black alums to come back and tell their story. And some of those stories were not pretty, but for them to be able to share what Towson was like for Black students 40, 50, 60 years ago, and then see where it is now, it was so breathtaking is the word that I'll use. And to still be able to be in contact with some of those alum, even now, months later, it's just awesome. And I've been asked to bring it back. And so I think that sitting at the elders' feet may become a signature program out of my area, because our TBAA is extremely active on campus. One of the largest alumni alliances here on campus, and their engagement is undescribable. And so want to make sure that our students are taking advantage of all the resources that are available to them through those networks. So yeah, I'm going to bring it back next year for homecoming.
So we're going to land the plane here, so we've got just a couple of questions. First, some commonly asked ones. Where can we find a CSD?
The Center for Student Diversity is located in the University Union, room 343. If you take the steps or the elevator,
to the right.
Yes, to the right. Yes, and we're in our new permanent old space. We're back in our old space. And so I invite folks to come visit us, to come hang out. It is not just a space for us to, work out our programming. It's a space that we want students and faculty and staff to come hang out, to eat, to watch TV, to engage, to collaborate, and to partner with us. So definitely come check us out, University Union 343.
Where, if a student wants to get involved, where do they sort of start to look for things that your office is really?
Social media is our biggest marketing platform. So follow us at Towson CSD. All of our programs, events are shared there either through stories or through posts. Involved at TU, again, is a platform where information is shared. And then TU Today. Like, you can catch our events on TU Today as well.
Last question. This is just off the cusp here. We asked it earlier. Favorite movie of all time is?
The Wizard of Oz. The Wizard of Oz, all versions. The original, The Wiz, Wicked, Return to Oz, which is the kids version. Not a fan of the newer ones with, what's the man's name? Not Johnny Depp. See, I can't even think of the man's name because I don't like him. But Oz, I don't like his versions. It's a little scary and creepy for me.
It doesn't have the magic.
Yes. It's missing the magic. See, now I'm going to be thinking about his name.
It'll probably pop up.
It'll as soon as you finish the recording.
Oh, that's what
it's gonna come to my mind.
It always happens. Keiwana, thank you so much for your time.
Absolutely.
Really appreciate having you. Thank you all again. And if you'd like to have your story told, feel free to fill out the link that is in the description below. We'll see you next time. Peace.
Bye.